victory for the Sydney Swans, the South Melbourne Bloods, whatever you want to call them, but against all odds have triumphed over the almighty Hawthorn Hawks. What a game it was, Nick.
Oh, it was a beautiful game. It was a game for the ages.
What a famous victory and one of probably the best grand finals I've seen in a long time. But in fact, the last 3 or 4 years, the grand finals have been of a high quality, especially in the AFL. But yesterday, I thought stood out from the pack just because of the momentum swings in the game was just so crucial, and it was amazing how it turned at times.
That was so monumental. I mean, like, not just to have 4 swings in a game set by quarters, but to have 4 massive
swings. I mean, I think Sydney, Hawthorn got off to a fantastic start, and Sydney kicked away to a sizable lead, and Hawthorn reeled them back, and then again it switched again, and Sydney just ran over the top of them. But like I said, I mean, what an amazing way to finish, especially with the Sydney Swans. I mean, at the start of the year, not even ready to mention, in the pre-season hype. But yeah, exactly. Not even no talk of them at all. But they've proved everyone wrong.
The Parramatta of AFL.
Well, they didn't come last. that was the difference there. But yeah, a famous victory. So many great stories that come out of it. You were saying before. Discards the Swans have picked up are now premiership players.
Much like Melbourne, it's a pieced together team. They've just got players that have been cast off by other clubs, said that the time in the AFL is up, they're not needed as players anymore. Sydney have brought them in, and they're all premiership winners now.
A prime example of that was Mitch Morton. Up until the first week of the finals, the playing group actually said to him, "We don't trust you." And he went back and worked on it, and he got his opportunity in the first round of the finals. And he hasn't looked back. He kicked 2 crucial goals. I mean, what a story, really. I mean, to come back from that.
Oh, it's a completely marvellous effort just to go back and work on focus in the second grade.
And gain the trust of the playing group.
It was perfect timing to gain the trust.
And you saw after the game, there was an interview, and he was overcome with emotion, and rightly so. He's now got he got a premiership medal, which very, very few professional athletes would ever get to achieve. The other amazing story I thought was Mike Pike, the ex-Canadian rugby international.
Yes, he's taken a few intercepts in international rugby.
Of Dan Carter. I mean, it was quite funny in the pre-game, camera penny over the plays in the warm-up, and the stats usually come up, and Mike Pike's stat was 13 tests for the Canadian rugby team, which I thought was quite funny, but he was fantastic. He was close to best on ground, I thought, taking contested mark. I mean,
for someone who only started learning the game 3 years ago, you mentioned he was looking videos up on YouTube.
Yeah, to find out what Aussie rules was, and got a crack, and here he's on the biggest stage. And to even think that the Swans were, because I'm not sure if you knew this, but because of they were expecting wet weather, and they thought having 2 big men might be a bit of a disadvantage. And I think of probably admitting him from the team, but they kept him in there, and what a performance he delivered. But just again, Sydney Swans. It was a long 7 years, I guess you could say. Not really. I mean, St Kilda have waited 70 years. Some Western Bulldogs haven't won one, but it's great for the city, isn't it?
Yeah, it's marvellous for the city. I mean, it just erupted on Saturday. Everyone was a Swans fan for the day.
Well, I think that's the whole idea. I reckon you'll see a big increase in the interest in Sydney, I think.
And maybe next time they make a grand final.
Yeah, exactly. Wait till they make another one. But no. But I mean, just because this year was so unexpected as well.
Yeah.
I think adds a bit of excitement. The company line.
And everyone loves that underdog story.
Everyone loves the underdog story. But back to the game. Just one of the most fascinating games I've seen in any sport. Really, just like we said, the momentum swings. Lance Franklin looked like he was going to grab the game by his hands and win it for him, but maybe his inaccuracy cost him at the end.
Yeah, a few crucial misses throughout the game.
There was one in the last quarter which would have put him 19 in front, and I don't see Swans coming back from there.
That's a big gap to breach in the last quarter.
Especially in the last 10 minutes. But to Sydney's credit, the courage, John Longmire. I mean, what an effort.
Oh, it was an amazing effort. Just the effort he put in throughout the game.
I mean, his second year in charge.
Yeah.
As the head coach for the Sydney Swans. Picking up where Paul Roos left off. It's emotional as a Sydney sider, and the press got behind us. Front page of the Daily Telegraph: Sydney 1, Melbourne nothing, but they square the ledger in the end, unfortunately, Melbourne.
Well, hopefully Swans winning is a little bit of an omen for South Sydney next year. Second year coach,
please, mate,
taking a club to a premiership.
Let's stick on the topic, mate. The other great performance I thought was Kieran Jack. Do you recognise the name Kieran Jack, Nick?
I do recognise Kieran Jack.
And who is Kieran Jack?
He is the son of someone else with the surname Jack.
The legendary Gary Jack from the Balmain Tigers.
Old Gaza.
Old Gaza. But he never got to experience a grand final win. He was in a couple as a player. He, of course, was on the receiving end of that, the greatest NRL grand final of all time, the 89 grand final against Canberra, if you remember that.
Yep.
Yeah, and...
That was when the Englishman was taken out.
Yeah, and, Benny Elias's field goal hit the crossbar, and Jackson, Peter Jackson, the late Peter Jackson, went over to score a famous grand final try, but, he's kind of filled the void for Gary through his son, who's now won a premiership, a blight in a different code. But, just the Swans, what an effort. I mean, like you said, the whole city got behind them. Still now, I mean, they're expecting thousands of thousands. They've got a Tic-Tac parade in the city, I think, on George Street.
I've got friends who have only watched 2 games of AFL, the 2005-2012 grand final, and they're still lining up at tattoo shops wanting to get a tattoo.
Getting the premiership winning tattoo. Yeah. But it was funny, John Longmire said after the game, he said, I think the players will party for a couple of weeks, but in the paper that reported, he didn't think that, take that literally, and they're still kicking on hard. In fact, last night, a friend of mine saw them at an unnamed location in the Cross, kicking on, drinking many a beverage. We're going to talk about, I saw an article in the Telegraph yesterday, I mean, you're an outspoken critic of the Telegraph, but I thought it was a good article. It was by Paul Kent, I think, who said the spectacle of the AFL Grand Final, overall, it's outshining the NRL Grand Final. Now, he's a well-known NRL tragic, and he's just said possibly the AFL game is advancing and the NRL game is probably going backwards. Could you agree with that?
I couldn't. I read the article, and I think the AFL for the last few years have always had the better pre-game entertainment, but the NRL did step it up this year. I mean, the AFL last year with Meatloaf, that was a little blip on the radar.
I think Kent was more talking about the actual game itself.
Yes, he was focusing on the game and the styles of the game. And we all know the top NRL teams, all good wrestlers. Manly, Melbourne, Doggies, Souths, all really good wrestling sides. And, it's restricted free-flowing football. And the 2 best sides make it to the grand final each year will usually be the 2 best wrestlers.
Yeah.
Teams who get into the grind the best and come out the other side. And less and less will we see teams like the West Tigers and stuff going on a bit of a
don't you think that's a bad thing? I think that's... me, I prefer rugby league, but I'm an avid AFL supporter. The whole day of the AFL was just so much better. It was. The game itself was absolutely fantastic. It was end-to-end stuff, momentum swings, spectacular goals. Lewis Jetta, having a sprint off of Cyril Rioli. But, the NRL, I think wrestling has disadvantaged the game. I think the game has taken a couple of steps backwards, in my opinion.
It has made for a slower game. But, wrestling's here to stay, and as much as I would like to see it go, I just don't see that happening.
Do you disagree with Paul Kent's point of view? Because he is an avid follower of the NRL. He writes about it for a living.
I can understand where he's coming from, but watching both grand finals, I can still say I enjoyed watching the NRL one more, just because I prefer watching a game of rugby league. But even so, I enjoyed watching the game more. The AFL was still a better spectacle for me, just because the celebrations afterwards, the entertainment before. I mean, the temper trap were fantastic, and just hearing cheer the red and the white blast over.
Of course, but I think the AFL, in most facets of organisation, administration, the business model, I think they're well ahead of the NRL still. I mean, we've only just got the NRL have only just got the independent commission in. It just seems the AFL that step ahead of us still. You think they've got the daytime grand final. They said during the week.
Does it surprise you that the NRL were trying to get the second in charge of the AFL to come be CEO?
Well, I think it'd be a fantastic idea. I mean, I heard on the news this morning on the radio that, for years, broadcasters have said we want the AFL Grand Final at night, but to Demetrio's credit and the AFL board, and not the board, sorry, the people in charge there, to their credit, they said, bugger you, no, this is our game, it's traditional, we're not going to let a TV station kind of dictate the terms.
No.
I think that's great. I think the daytime Grand Final is so much better.
I do like that, rather than, league heads just pretty much getting in bed with Channel 9, letting them do whatever they want.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's kind of sad, but overall, I think the AFL have got the whole day sussed out. But back to the game quickly. Will you see an influx of more Sydney supporters now? Do you think? Do you reckon memberships will rise after this Grand Final victory?
Oh, I think there will be a little rise next year, but the Swans are going to have to try hard to keep it going for the next few years, because if there's no instant success following this, then it'll drop back down to what it was last year.
Well, I'm not sure. I think I know what you're saying, but with GWS coming in, the NRL starting to, it's true. The NRL's just starting to slow down a little bit. That it's not as entertaining as it was. I'll always still watch it, of course, but just for a kind of a partial follower, a neutral kind of viewer, you'd much rather watch the AFL Grand Final, just as someone who doesn't follow the game.
It just drags you in the AFL Grand Final.
It's an
amazing spectacle.
The whole thing, I think you're right though, it does. Like the whole thing of it, they've got the grand. Why the NRL does not have a Grand Final parade is beyond me.
I'm not even sure if Melbourne Storm have a song. They play Thunderstruck when they come out of the dressing sheds, but there was nothing going on afterwards. The ground announcer said a few things.
Yeah, it was. Exactly. But why the NRL does not put on a Grand Final parade? I'm sure thousands and thousands of Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs supporters would love to go out to the city and watch the team drive by like the AFL. 60,000.
Even though it wasn't the best conditions for that down in Melbourne.
No, it wasn't. But 100,000 people still turned out. I think the whole week leading up to the game is just so much better, and it just adds to the actual game. And if the game itself, the AFL Grand Final itself, is fantastic, then it's a huge success. It starts with the Brownlow medal as well. I think that's a great idea. The Brownlow medal on the Monday night before the Grand Final.
Yeah,
I think it's great. So I think the Dally M's is the first week of the finals.
Yeah, once the regular season games finish, the Dally M's.
So but just wrapping up, I think that's one thing. I hope the NRL get fixed up. Sydney Swans, congratulations! You've made a whole city proud.
Yeah,
what a fantastic achievement. Best on ground, Ryan O'Keefe, amazing effort. I thought Daniel Hattenbury as well was very close to the Norm Smith. Special, kudos to Pike as well, the convert. And before we head to a little interval, we'll just play the ceiling snap from Nick Malachevsky, which was an amazing goal. So enjoy.
All right.